Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the last webinar of a series of professional webinars organized by MBC. My name is Dr. Mario Boris Curatolo. I am the CEO and founder of MBC Management Business Consultant. MBC is a Swiss-based executive management training firm which organizes, runs, and conducts training initiatives aimed at executives, CEOs, startup managers, and business people interested in reinterpreting the way they understand and run the business so that they can prepare to compete in a future new normal context. MBC also offers university graduates and business school graduates a business plan development course, which offers the techniques and tools necessary to turn an idea into a viable business so that they can become entrepreneurs capable of setting up their own firms and creating employment not only for themselves but for others. In case you would like to learn more about MBC, please visit our website www.mbc-sa.com. Now, without further delay, let's move on to introduce the topic of our webinar, which is Are diversity and inclusion at risk due to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis? Well, this webinar will be presented by 4 panelists. Professor Mishra from the Institute of Public Enterprises, Dr. Kokat from the University of Comsat in Pakistan, in Islamabad, and Mr. Nasser, who is senior training consultant of MBC, and Dr. Chanu from University of Assam in Difu campus. Let's then start with the introduction of the webinar, which will center around the topic of diversity and the topic of whether diversity and inclusion are at risk due to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. If we start by looking at the concept of inclusion and diversity as something that still matter, it becomes obvious that this is the case, because despite the effects of the COVID-19 on firms affecting their revenues, their operations and supply chains, and their liquidity and solvency, it is precisely these elements which render inclusion and diversity an essential element to gain resilience for executives to operate in the next normal. So the question now is whether inclusion and diversity are receding as strategic priorities for organization. Well, these they might be receding if companies adapt to new ways of working. 2, companies consolidate workforce capacity. 3, companies maintain productivity patterns as they were. So all these elements limit the capacity of diversity and inclusion to affect the ability of firms to adapt. So the question now comes as obvious: what happens if if companies pull back on diversity and inclusion. If they pull back on diversity and inclusion, they could be placing themselves at a disadvantage. They will fail to better their position to grow and renew themselves. They could lose resilience in terms of developing innovative capacity and therefore think outside the box. And finally, they could lose performance as their organizational health is affected. So the question is, do the benefits of diversity and inclusions are different in normal times than in crisis? Well, it looks as if this is not the case, because gender, ethnic diversity and inclusions go hand in hand. Therefore, regardless of whether you are in a crisis or in normal times. Besides that, diverse companies will always outperform their peers, whether they operate in a crisis or whether they operate in normal times. And finally, you find that there is a strong correlation in terms of the effects of firms between gender diversity and the effects on positive behavior, better organizational health, and better business performance of firms. So therefore, the question is, why would inclusion and diversity lose momentum? Well, because during the crisis, companies tend not to focus on diversity and inclusion. We see that 27% of firms have put on hold inclusion and diversity initiative during the COVID-19. The access to diverse talents becomes less able when more limited in a time of crisis where jobs are being lost, so that they tend to consolidate on those jobs that directly have an incidence on productivity. So therefore, sectors like the diversity and inclusion element, which would give a competitive capacity to firms, especially in retailing, leisure, and hospitality, will be lost. And more so, as workforce automation increases, then this will end up affecting the diversity and inclusion of women and minorities in firms, because they do not have the access to this technology or the training to the level of digitalization required in the new context. So in what way would diversity and inclusion then be eroded by the crisis? Well, be eroded because as remote working becomes is used more often, this will reinforce exclusive behavior and bias. It will undermine the inclusive workplace culture, and it will affect communication between workers and the firm, leading to the creation of holdups and delays that will amplify the non-inclusive dynamic nature of derived from the less resort to diversity and inclusion. So, as I was saying, the option is basically now is to invest in diversity and inclusion, because by investing in diversity and inclusion, this will allow firms to create a more adaptive and effective teams and develop a competitive advantage. Okay, all right. Now, In this process of promoting inclusion and diversity, we will have winners and losers, because there will be those firms like fast movers who will use inclusion and diversity as their existing competitive advantage to work their way out of the crisis. There will be those moderate movers who are companies who will limit themselves to try to protect their gains, therefore doing little to grow out of the crisis. And there are the laggers, who are those who will do very little as they remain static, but as a result of deprioritizing inclusion and diversity effort during the crisis. Consequently, at the end, we find that executives must, if executives want to prepare their firms to compete in the new normal, changing their business model, adapting it to become more inclusive and diverse, they must make sure that they win the war for talent. That means ensuring diverse talent is not lost, improving the quality of decision making. That means relying on decision makers who are capable of thinking outside the box and therefore making creative solutions. Increasing customers' insight and innovation. That means developing more diverse teams as opposed to homogeneous teams, because diverse teams are the ones capable of developing new products and new solutions. Driving employee motivation and satisfaction through encouraging leaders to apply an inclusive leadership that makes employees part of the solution. And finally, improving a company's global image. That means making companies learn how to operate by cooperating with other firms, with government, and with society. So in conclusion, if crises are the times for forging a new commitment to quality, then now is the time for bolder decisions. Now is the time to adopt inclusion and diversity. Because before, the capacity of firms to come out of the crisis depended on the ability of the leaders to take decisions that will take the firms out of the crisis. However, now leaders can take the firms out of the crisis and at the same time improve their financial returns and social and cultural returns by encouraging and developing inclusion and diversity. So I will leave you now with a phrase that sort of synthesizes the whole idea behind this presentation, is that if big crises bring about big changes, then the opportunity to forge a new commitment to equality and fairness, which could ensure more prosperity for all, is already here. So the ball is in our side, and then we must play it in terms of adopting more inclusion and diversity. Thanks very much. Okay, I will leave the word now to Chanu, Dr. Chanu, to make her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mario Curatolo. Thank you very much. Actually, in the middle, I was disconnected, and I was trying to connect again and again. So somehow now I can connect. So some of your deliberations. I could not, I miss some of your deliberations. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. The very outset, I would like to thank Dr. Mario for giving me such an opportunity to discuss on a very, very relevant topic, that is diversity and inclusion. So I will take hardly 7 to 10 minutes. That you know that I used to take 7 to 10 minutes whenever there is always a discussion. Respected Misra sir, Professor Misra sir, Mr. Nasir sir, and Dr. Kokhar sir. Good afternoon from India, and the listeners who are watching today's panel discussion. I hope some of them have left, maybe because of their technical issue, same issue that I had faced. So all of them WhatsApp me, send me through WhatsApp. So they are trying to connect. I hope they will join later on. So today, on this panel discussion, I will be trying to put my thoughts on remote working, because all the panelists may be speaking on different perspectives and different dimensions on diversity and the inclusion. So I'm thinking that remote working is a very, very important area in the COVID-19 pandemic. So it doesn't mean that the concept of remote working was not there in the pre-COVID-19 pandemic. No, I'm not saying that. But all of us know that, as in Dr. Mario's presentation, it was also mentioned that what type of change has been, brought forth by the COVID-19 pandemic. So in the pre-COVID-19 pandemic, we all know that the world was more, globalized in nature. The world was just like a global village. So at that point of time, that remote working was also there. So today we are facing a different type of situation. And into this, it means that during this COVID-19 pandemic, the type of remote working, it is a forced remote working. So there are literatures which say about the merits and benefits of remote working, but the forced remote working will never bring a positive result, which I would like to share with everyone. And here, why the forced remote working will not bring positive result? So during this COVID-19 pandemic, all of us cannot go. We have to maintain the social distance, physical distance, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So every business organization, either be small, then medium, then large, or whatever be. So those small business organizations which were established based on the value, based on the objective being global, right, before COVID-19 pandemic. So being global, it means what? It is a totality. Totality means what? Belief on diversity, belief on inclusion. So belief on inclusion means what? Encouragement of differences. So encouragement of differences means what? That is a specialization. So those organizations which started based on the objective of being global now have started opting remote working, and because otherwise there is no option. We have seen recently the multinational companies and tech firms like Microsoft, then Google, then even the Facebook. Okay, so they have already sought out the plan for some of the employees to work from home permanently. So like that, there are many organizations, be it in Switzerland or India or in Japan or the United States of America. So many business organizations have started changing their strategy and have started changing their business environment. And the main change is that is the remote working. So the question is that what will be the consequences of remote working on the diversity and the inclusion? As Mario has already told about the gender problem, then race, then different ethnic groups, he had already mentioned. Here the problem is that here when during the COVID-19 pandemic, because of the forced remote working, many employees, you see, we know that they were not ready to cope up such type of changes. So earlier what happened, they were working in the organization. Now because of the forced remote working, they have to work in their home, okay, basically in their home. And in case of remote working, why so many people who encourage remote working said that remote working is very good for those people who want the flexible time and who always are in the frequent traveling, who are always traveling abroad. Okay, so there are lots of benefits. But question is that the remote working during the time of COVID pandemic, this is a force. You see, so many employees, they were not trained, as Dr. Mario also mentioned here. They were not trained properly, and at their home, they do not have the resources. So as far as remote working is concerned, here I use the term again and again, forced remote working. So the main problem is that, you see here, we have to know that the resources are not equally distributed. Those employees who are opted for or who are forced for the remote working, they do not have the resources. See, when we are discussing on through Zoom platform. Now you see, because of the technical problem, yes, there was disruption, for example. So like that, those employees who do not have the resources in their home, so how will they do? Companies and business organizations, they want a result. But because of the lack of resources, they will not be able to work properly. As far as resources are concerned, we know that there is a need for stable Wi-Fi. There is a need for tools and technology. So such type of resources are not available as far as least developed countries and the developing countries are concerned. Second one, which I would like to submit on today's discussion, is about the women. See, so women, you see, during the this COVID-19 pandemic, they have to work at home, and when they work at home, most of them are the caretakers of their baby. They have to look after their family, they have to look after their children, everything. So they have to work. You see, there is a contradiction. So they will not be able to give a better result. Because of that, the organizations may not want women to be included. So this is an attack on the diversity as well as the inclusive policy of the companies and the business organization. So what I would like to say here is that remote working during the COVID-19 pandemic will have a negative consequences, will have a big impact on the companies, belief, or companies' way of, working regarding to inclusion and diversity. Now you see, another one which I would like to mention here is that during COVID-19, you see, so the question is the reverse back economy. Basically from the developing countries like India, Bangladesh, then Pakistan or Indonesia, they always look towards the West. They were working there. So many people of India were also working here. So they return back to their respective countries, right? Okay, because of that, you see, because of this reverse economy, they after returning to India, say for example, 500,000 500,000 Indians returned from different parts of the country during this COVID-19 pandemic. Most of them were working here. Now they are either they are jobless, or some of them may offer remote working. But when we discuss about remote working at this point of time, most of the business organizations, they want to work only with their trustworthy people. Now the question is that who are trustworthy? Those who have left the organization because of the COVID-19 pandemic, those who have returned to their respective places, whether they are trustworthy or not. So because of such type of development, what will be the consequences is that, so the people from different countries may not be allowed to work in the organization. What happened as a result of this, in the long run, so many ethnic groups, so many marginalized groups of the society may not have the opportunity to work in different organizations. So what I would like to submit here is that as far as the diversity and the inclusion are concerned, yes, because of the remote force, I'm telling the forced remote working, not that one, the type of remote working which we had in the pre-COVID-19 pandemic. The post-COVID-19, the forced remote working, which has brought in the COVID-19 pandemic, will automatically have a negative impact on diversity and the inclusion of every business organization. So these are the things which I would like to submit, and later on we may have the discussion, and the other two parts, the two objectives may be covered by Misra sir and the Nasir sir and others. That's why just I take up only the remote working. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Mario.
Thank you, Dr. Chanu. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping on time.
Now, it was conducted in Islamabad by one organization. They realized that many people who are infected with COVID-19, they are asymptomatic. They don't show any symptom. This was just a recent research, and it was also published in yesterday, a very reputable newspaper, that out of every 100 people in Islamabad, 14.5% are infected, but they do not show any symptom. So once they do not show any symptom, so they do not come under the surveillance of recognize, okay, who is infected, who is not infected. And therefore, the estimate that we must know a very good estimate to know that what we can do to stop the disease. We don't have any mandatory data to prepare some health guidelines. So this really is problem. So in the end, we will see that for all those people in Pakistan, there is no online education. Those who are infected, or even those who are in far-flung areas, this COVID has really created problems. All private and public schools, even, they do not offer any online courses, and virtual education is literally non-existent. And especially rural areas and even far-flung northern areas where there is no internet connectivity, even our university students cannot take classes, even though our university is doing online courses. But many of my students complain that we cannot take online classes in our areas because of poor internet connections. And it is always poor who are the suffering. And the COVID test is basically not free. Usually it depends where you get the COVID test. Average like $40 to $50 for one COVID test cost. So there are many people who do not take COVID test. So as a result, we do not know who is infected and who is not infected. If somebody feels he is infected, he has to pay money from his pocket to conduct this, to get this test done. So we can see in Pakistan, many people have been marginalized, and this COVID thing has hit them hard, and minorities and many poor people, they were already living a very poor life, because 40% of our people are living below poverty line. So when this new thing, new normal happened, so many are already having very hard time. And after that, there are so many other problems: locust, monsoon rain, and shortage of wheat, sugar, and petrol price suddenly rose very high. All these things has excluded the poor people from the mainstream development and made their life, which is was already miserable, even worse. So when we talk about inclusiveness and and diversity, we really have to think about how organizations, even if they are not like in the past thinking about inclusion and diversity, how we can come up with this new thing. And as Dr. Chanu mentioned, that we have to teach remote learning or remote working. So many people in our rural areas, even though they have never been exposed to online teaching, or this was all new thing for them. And even right now, even some of our university professors are struggling with this online teaching, because it's a new challenge for us as well.
Okay.
So how
Doctor,
organizations can, yes sir, it's about to finish.
Doctor, please draw your conclusions. Thank you.
Okay, so at the end we can see that we have to come up with some new strategies where we can teach people how to make strategies that can include the poor and marginalized people in the companies, so that they can be benefit, even if they are in education, healthcare, whatever sector they are working in. So that will be a new step towards inclusion and diversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kokat. Thank you for a nice presentation.
Welcome.
The word to NASA, please. NASA,
yeah.
The word to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mario, for inviting me. And I really enjoyed the discussion so far by our learned panelists. And they have rightly pointed out the problems of challenges related to COVID-19, related to inclusion and diversity, and the issue of remote working and remote education is very much relevant. So is the concern and the welfare of the rural population as well. I will speak very briefly on the specific topic, which is COVID-19 is producing any risk for inclusion and diversity? Well, my answer is this: yes, very much. And the employers who are being marginalized and who are forced to work with some marginal workforce, and who are facing escalating costs and less sales, are definitely having second thoughts on the benefit of investing in inclusion and diversity. And a recent survey, I was reading one report in the United States, that they surveyed that before COVID-19, 15% of the employers placed inclusion and diversity as a top priority in their HR strategic policies. 2 months into the lockdown, the percentage came down to 5%. 5% thought that inclusion and diversity is their priority. So that shows a very alarming trend that companies are shifting their focus away from the importance of inclusion and diversity, which should not be the case. Because as Dr. Mario pointed out very rightly, well-planned inclusion and diversity definitely adds a competitive advantage to the organizations. And the people who have invested in inclusion and diversity before the pandemic, they are now well placed. They are now in a better position to fight through their way through this pandemic and continue their business even after the pandemic. So my concern is really that how we can spread awareness among the employers of any enterprises, public or private, school, institution, hospital, whatever, the importance of inclusion and diversity, the importance of retaining their workforce, the importance of inclusion and diversity on the morale and the motivation of the employees. So one good sign that has emerged after going through various research reports is this, that 3 months down the road, many employers are now thinking for the first time, and they are forced to ask this question, that they have to be really concerned with the well-being circumstances of their employees, which includes the new timetable, which includes the new operation schedules, which includes working with the thin workforce, which includes how to deal with the women who are forced to stay at home, which are part of a considerable amount of workforce anywhere in the country. And they have started broadening their decision making now, including inclusion and diversity into the strategic management process. So I would just focus on 4 critical questions that came into my mind while studying this various reports and various research done on inclusion and diversity. I would just give my opinion about these 4 critical questions. The number 1 question is this: what is happening with diversity and inclusion during this COVID-19 pandemic? Well, the things are mixed. Some employers are still believe in the power of inclusion and diversity, and some employers are more concerned with their cost, profitability, and the future investment. So this trend is very well. You can see it in many countries. It makes sense. They should know that many employers are sensing that it makes sense that to have a diverse workforce and to have employees that feel part of the company. That feel that they are safe, management is taking care of them, and they're included in their decision making, and they are not being laid off, or they are being taken care of. This is a very, very important motivational aspect for not only for workforce, but also the customers of the companies as well, and the communities as well. Furthermore, uh, everybody knows that employees can go an extra mile. Employees can work an extra mile for the companies if they feel that they are trusted, they are treated fairly, they are valued, and that they belong to the company, and they are not just a marginal people. So this can only be addressed by addressing the critical issue of inclusion and diversity by the top management or by the employers of the company. This was the number 1 question. Number 2 question that comes into my mind is, to what extent are employers or companies are maintaining their focus on diversity and inclusion during the current pandemic crisis? Well, here also we found some mixed findings, and we find out that most of the employers are not very much concerned, or not very much thinking in terms of maintaining their diversity and inclusion, which is a very sad situation. It should have been the other way around. And most of the employees, especially the marginal workforce, the communities, women or young adults, they started feeling unsafe. They started feeling that they will be almost, most of them have lost their jobs, but the people who are still working with the workforce, they feel that they are in a risk of losing their jobs, and they are in risk of losing their standard of living. So this brings me to give up 3 opinions, or 3 questions, to raise 3 questions for the employers to think when they plan their future inclusion and diversity policies. Number 1 is how people can best and most effectively balance their home and work responsibilities. They have to guide, they have to provide some kind of policies for their employees to think on these lines. Number 2, they have to think about how the pandemic is affecting the different groups of employees, especially in the multinational organizations, which have got a different ethnic groups, which are working for them, different parts of the countries. They have to focus on their specific needs and the circumstances. Number 3, workplace adjustment may be needed. This is a very, very important structural, or you can say operational issue, that the employers, in order to maintain a healthy balance of their diversity and also not to lose the focus on inclusion, have to make some adjustment in their workplace. Could it be the moving of machines, or departments, reorganization, whatever, they have to focus on these three. And the third question that comes on mind is that, which I explained earlier, are employers losing their focus, or is inclusion and diversity is no more the priority? As I said earlier, that this concern is very much relevant, that we can see that most of the companies are now not that much thinking in terms of inclusion and diversity. And we have to focus on a redesigning of our business model and include this critical issues as a strategic core issue which have to be dealt in the future. And they have to show a greater understanding of their employees. They have to show the greater understanding of the needs and the personal circumstances of the employees from wherever they come from. And the issue becomes even more with the larger companies. The fourth question, or in conclusion, I would say that the diversity and inclusion needs to be the power of the core part of the business operational strategies. And this, we know that COVID-19 has created an unusual circumstances. We are not talking about business as usual. We are moving towards designing a new norms, a new normal, what everybody is saying. And this requires quick and difficult decisions. It could be laying off some employees. It could be making some employees return to work, not the full workforce. It may include dealing with some legal obligations for the payments of employees and things like that. So this has to be a core business issue now, that inclusion and diversity has to be maintained at any cost, which is definitely now at risk. So in addition, the standard management practices that we talk about, especially related to HR, because as you know, COVID-19 is more of a humanitarian crisis rather than any business or infrastructural crisis. So the humanitarian crisis takes its time. We can repair the infrastructure, we can repair roads, machines, buildings, whatever, if they fall in some calamity. But human or humanitarian crisis needs some time. So we have to adopt a new standard of HR recruitment, HR selection, and of course, every company wants to look for the best people, but first they have to look what they have. We have to come up with some effective retaining policies. And one more thing, here there's very much, there's a need to adopt a non-discriminatory policies. We cannot discriminate people on the basis of race, or especially the women. They're suffering a lot, and most of the women have lost jobs, and they're the first one to be laid off as compared to their male counterparts. So this is a very, very critical issues, that the future policies of diversity and inclusion should be fair, transparent, and inclusive. And we should be thinking in terms of transformational. I mean, we should go over to a transformational mode of thinking, rather than laying or cost cutting or taking some radical measures which can affect the employees. My message to the employers or the companies is this, that this is a time when you need your employees more than ever, and your employees need you more than ever. So you need to look at them, their circumstances, you look at their values, you have to respect what they have done for you, because the loyal employees are very hard to find, and they're less costly to maintain rather than finding a new employees. So please, message is this, that before you redesign your diversity and inclusion policies, keep this thing in mind, that we are in the middle of the crisis and we don't know when this crisis is going to end. So you have to maintain a balance in your diversity and inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasser. Thank you very much. Professor Mishra, the word to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Mario, for this great opportunity that you have given to us to meet our friends from different parts of the world over here and also talk with you. And let me have one word about MCB is doing wonderful work, I think, in the form of these seminars and these webinars and educating world, I think, about what is happening now. Now, I think, this problem that we are discussing today is a very, very vital problem, because this concerns the government, this concerns the people at the ground level, this concerns each and everyone in society. Now, given that, I think a couple of things are there. We had brilliant presentations from Professor Chanu and also from Professor Khokar and then Professor Nasir. I can just take those discussions a bit forward. Now, coming to India, the whole thing is that we have looked at this in a very, very different way. We have found pandemic COVID-19 as a very great opportunity to transform the country and take the country from this point to a point where it can go for under 20-25 years. We have had a growth of 6.5% every year. Now our goal is that we must have a rate of growth of 10% per annum. We must have a better distribution, I think, in society. We must have a society which can enjoy a better standard of living. We want a society where innovations take place. We want a society where we can live together with people all around the world. We have a language in the country which is considered to be a very, very traditional and a very classical language, and that is known as Sanskrit. And in Sanskrit we say Bahujan Haray, Bahujan Sudhay, means we should think of good for all and everybody should be happy. Sarve bhavanti sukhne, sarve santi niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyanti, ma kashit dukh bhagvet. Indians, they don't believe only in India, because India is the part of the globe. If there is any problem anywhere in the world, India just can't remain peaceful. And therefore, in this prayer that we do to God, we always say that everyone in the world should be happy. If they are happy, people who live in India are also happy. They should be prosperous. They should be going forward. What has happened is that in India, this has come as a great, great opportunity. Great opportunity in the sense that the kind of political system we have developed, the kind of system we have developed, the kind of communication system that we have developed from top down to the bottom, it has brought people together. We have the government at the federal level, then we have government at the subnational level, then at the municipal level, and all of them, they work in tandem. They just go in diverse ways. And when we talk about this and we talk about business, what happens is that all these three forms of government, they work very closely with business at the local level, business at the state level or subnational level, and business at the national level. Now, given that COVID-19 has come a great opportunity, for instance, we can talk of, IND, inclusion and diversity. And India has been talking of inclusion and diversity for a couple of years, and that has helped India in increasing GDP. Our GDP was 3%. It used to be 3% about 40 years back. Now it has become 8 to 9%. And what is the reason? The reason is society is just not there in pieces. It is one society. We talk of minority, we talk of women, we talk of children, we talk of old people, we talk of people who are physically challenged. But in all that, we talk of developed states, we talk of states which are lagging behind. In all that, what we do is that we find a solution which can take care of all these people in one go. And therefore, the Prime Minister of this country, he has now come out with a program, and that program is that all of us should work together, cooperation by all and development, for all. Sabka saath, sabka vikas. He doesn't want it to be restricted only to a few sections of society. He knows that in his dynamism, he knows that India can go forward only when we don't discriminate. As Professor Nasir he has made a very interesting point and very important point. Discrimination leads to destruction. If we discriminate, that means we are destroying the society. So therefore, the first thing that has to come for sustained development. India believes in sustained development. Sustained development can come, as Professor Nasir has told, only when you don't have a big gulf between and have-nots. people should have the pie and they should be distributing the pie in a way that they can, live together. Therefore, what has happened during last so many years now? Let's say, as Professor Chanu was saying, we had the problem of migration. This caused the problem of immigration. Now, for the first time, government of India and state governments could know that there could be a problem like that, and about 30 million people, go from one state to another state, from one place to another place. And what happened was that through a very systematic plan, it was done in a wonderful way with the least kind of pain to people. Not only that, when you talk of health, in health issues, again, we didn't differentiate between so-called rich and so-called poor. There are different governments at the state level, at the subnational level. All of them have a scheme by which people who have income to a certain level, they are given free kind of hospitalization. So when there is a rich person can go to private hospitals, can go and spend a lot of money. But what happens is that those who are not rich, for them also, governments have provided facilities where they can go and get, hospitalized, and the entire care can be taken, from home to home. The care can be taken, by the government, by the hospitals are funded, by the government. Very interestingly, when you talk of women, I think, because we knew that in India, women is considered to be a very important part of the entire society. We always in Sanskrit, Matru Deva Bhava, Pitru Deva Bhava, means we consider women as the mother, and mother gives us each and everything. So we respect mother and touch her feet. And therefore, what happens is that in India, we have done, when you talk of civil services, in civil services, for people who are not very well off, we have given them reservation. About 50% of the top jobs in the government, they go to people who do not come from rich classes of society. They go to women which have not been very well educated. We knew, I think, one very important thing, that this COVID has come. COVID is a challenge. COVID needs a change, but India should lead the change. India should not be led by change. And to lead the change, what we have done is that we have instructed, as Professor Nasir was telling, we have instructed industry not to lay off anybody. And you'll be very happy. I come from the education sector. I come from this institute. My institute, my colleagues are working from home. Last 5 months, we have been paying them salaries. We have been paying them transport allowance. We are not we have given all deductions to them, and they continue to enjoy all the facilities. That is not only from my institute. That is ordered by the government, the state government. I am from the Telangana state. Telangana is one of the 29 states of India. All the other states have been doing, and government of India has also advised them to do that. So you'll find practically there is no layoff. There's one thing. Number two, people who went from one state to another state, and people who had some problems, India has come out with a scheme of giving 85 crore, means 850 million people, they are getting free food. 850 people, they are getting free food, and food is being delivered. Food means, grains. Grains are being delivered, pulses are being delivered, they are given free cylinders. So what has happened is that their needs, they are fully taken care of. Not only that, they have also been told how to, how to take care of health. And this applies to women, children, villages, cities, and, metropolis. And then now everyone has to have, we have masks there, we do sanitization. In my own institute, we have taken care of this. We have oxygen cylinders. We have some beds in the institute for staff and for the student. And we have also put doctors, we have put nurses over there. It doesn't just end there. We have gone much forward, and we have completed all our examination online. In India, in different states, COVID was claimed, or this curfew was claimed on 24th of March, and from 26th of March we started our online courses. And in India, we have less problem of geographical dispersion, and this problem of bandwidth. We are on 5G, so this 5G has gone even to villages, etc. and we give all the students, our laptops, all our colleagues are on laptops, and therefore, and they have very good bandwidth. And we have our own, in most of the universities and good institutions, there may be hardly some where we have our own studios. So we have our own videos, and our online, we differentiate between online education under COVID. We have also differentiated between online and also, what is known as, blended education. So, we have done lots of such things, and it doesn't, stop there. We have also, in India, we have come out with what is known as a package, and that package is there to help different sectors of society, MSMEs, women, children, old people, office goers, students, teachers, farmers. And this is about roughly 12% of the GDP of our country. Our GDP is about 3.5 trillion. So we have done 12 to 15%, this. And this is in the second stage, and we are contemplating that in third stage, again, we'll give 12 trillion thing. Now, keeping all this, very interestingly, you see, work from home has certainly kept women highly engaged, because they have to work there. Since they are at home, they have to work for themselves, they have to work for the office, they have to also help the society. We have been thinking how this can be taken care of. This is, I think, a big problem, and therefore I think I'll say that women certainly is at a disadvantage so far as COVID is concerned. So far as males are concerned, I will not say that they are at any disadvantage. Nobody has been removed. As I just told you, technology has helped us, and a lot I would say, that is, corporate social responsibility and individual social responsibility. Then what happens, India is the only country in the world which has come out with an act. We have the Companies Act 2013, which we have revised in 2016. And in that we have a section 135. And in the section 135, we have made it obligatory on enterprises which earn profits to spend 2% of their profits on corporate social responsibility. So that money they are now giving to Prime Minister's Care Fund, and through that Care Fund, we have been now taking care of people who fall sick, people who don't have food, people who have lost jobs. We are taking care of their training and their reskilling, and also we are taking care of minorities in a very big way. We believe very firmly that without the inclusion of minority, India can't move ahead. Minorities and majority, they are just two different sides of the coin. And therefore, what we have done, as I was telling earlier, we have reserved jobs for minorities and underprivileged, which is about 50%. That is in the public sector. And in the private sector also, it's not an obligation, but they have to go through this kind of guideline. And if they follow this guideline, then they get a very high, high appreciation. So what I would say is that COVID-19 has now given, has come out with, I think, a lot of education for the country, that we have to work in a different way. We have to change our methods of working. We have to accelerate our rate of development. We have to bring minority and majority together. They are already there. We have to have greater bonding. We have to see that everyone gets employment. We have to see that gross enrollment ratio of boys and girls coming from minorities and majority, it improves significantly. Now it is at 85%, but we want to take to 100%, because we believe once we educate minorities and and the women, I should say, and people in the rural areas, I'm sure that we can transform the country. But when I say that, let me also tell you that in COVID 2019, our rural areas have done much better than the cities, because incidence of COVID-19 in rural areas has been very, very minor, very, very small. At the same time, as I think Mr. Khokar or Mr. Nasser, they were mentioning, we have a very good health infrastructure. And this very good health infrastructure has brought down the rate of mortality fertility very, very low. Our fertility is at around 2.5%. And I'm sure this will further, further go down with greater, medical care. So I would just, I think, stop there, but I would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Professor Mishra, for a wonderful broad perspective, which I think he have included many aspects that all the other panelists have brought to light. So we'll open up the floor for discussion. Let's have your question, Nasser.
Yeah, my question is for Dr. Mishra. He indicated, and same is happening in Pakistan. Basically, Dr. Mishra was talking about that government is subsidizing heavily. You can say government is putting a lot of money in the welfare of the people. And the same is in Pakistan also, that the government is heavily subsidizing food and even giving cash aid to the people to the tune of like 12,000 Pakistani rupees, things like that. So idea is this: the government is giving out of pocket a lot of money. But my question is this, same for the people, policy makers in India as well as to policy makers in Pakistan, on which maybe Dr. Khokhar can elaborate more on that, that how long this can last. I mean, how can we, like we can say, wheel of the economy has to go, money goes out, then the money comes in, the circle keeps on moving, everybody benefits, happily go home. But if this one-way traffic is going on, and what I have heard that pandemic comes, it lasts at least for 2 years. It comes in waves and then it comes again. So if we're talking about the time frame of 2 years, how long the government can keep on paying out of the pocket money? Maybe Dr. Mishra can ask on the behalf of India, and Dr. Khokhar can behalf of Islamabad. Do you think that this money can last forever?
This is a very good question. But, the background is that, we had a very great poet Iqbal, and Iqbal told, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." If we have life, then the world is there. And therefore, the first thing is, for any government, is to take care of people, because they have taken care of the government. They've been working, I think now, this is a very, very unusual situation. I don't say unprecedented, unusual situation. And they said that it will be peaking around September or so. But in India, what we have done is that we have promised this cash support, this food support till 2020. But if possible, we may take it to March 2021 also. Because we believe that by that time, this will peter out. So, see, government's job is, government has only two tools in the hands. One is fiscal policy, the other one is monetary policy. Now, on the policy, what we have done, we have reduced the rate of interest. We have given moratorium on loans to people. We have MSMEs which are not working, and there was no demand. We want to, activate demand by, giving more money, as Pakistan has done very rightly, in my view. They have done very rightly that they have given 12,000 rupees, so at least people have some money, and that money they'll spend, and therefore some demand will be there in the market. Because what happens is that in this pandemic, because of closure, I think, and work coming to a halt, banks were closed, people could not go out, transfer facilities were not available, and even I think communication channels, they were not working, very, very well, and going out was difficult. Given all that you tell me now, unless you have money in the hand, you just can't get supplies. So government of India, and I think government of Pakistan has done the same thing. They have given, food grains to people at home. One thing, they have, come out, their policy rates have been, cut down by about 25%. So loans have been made, very, very cheap. So we expect that this will go, I think. As you very rightly, as Person Nasser has very rightly observed, this can't go on for long. Because a study which we have done in our country, that has come out with the finding that productivity, when you talk of work from home, WFH, work from home, is 70% of the productivity when you go and work in the offices. And like since few of us are teachers, all of us are teachers here, and you are also, I think, in a way, I think, a hybrid kind of teacher. We know that unless we meet students and we talk to students, just not teaching, but culture building is there. Teacher is just not, a person who, writes something on the board and blurts out something. No. Teacher, I think, we had Aurangzeb, a great, great emperor in India, and Shah Jahan, was the father. And, Shah Jahan believed that a teacher is a person who does, the moral building in the student. He teaches the students and society ethics. This can't be done, I think, in this regime, I think, for very, very long. But what would happen is that this regime has taught us a lesson that world can't be the same. It has remained the same for a number of years. It can change, and be ready for change, and keep growth in mind, keep people in mind. As I think, Mr. Khokhar or I think, our Madam Professor Chanu was saying, people management is the most important thing. Manage people, take care of them. If you take care of them, they will take care of you. And together, we can survive and we can overcome, I think, any challenge of the world. Here, it is a must that we have to go beyond, I think, boundaries of our countries. Because this pandemic is not country related. This pandemic is a global kind of thing. And therefore, I think hope has to come and see where people are facing problems. If anybody is facing any problem, that problem is not only problem of that society, that country, it is a global problem. I'm reminded of the Nobel laureate, who was from Philippines, and he told, poverty anywhere is the challenge, is the challenge to prosperity anywhere. Therefore, I think if these problems are there in any part of the world, they are global problems. And all those people who are in charge of global institutions, who are in charge of running the countries, who are of making policies, they have to do their work in such a way that such problems are overcome and our society, global society, world society becomes a society of peace, tranquility, progress, happiness. We have to bring that. Then only I think the world can grow. We can't leave any part of the world unhappy. Any part of the world unhappy means cancer. This cancer can, I think, go to any other part. So never think that US can be, very happy and India can be unhappy. No, this can't work. It can never work, I think. US has to be happy, India has to be happy, Pakistan has to be happy, Bhutan has to be happy, Switzerland has to be happy. Everyone has to be happy.
I think going on from the points raised by NASA and the last ones made by you, I would like to start with your last point about this concept that there has to create an equality. This sense of this need for equality has been raised even more profoundly by the crisis, in which has highlighted that we are all vulnerable. We are, for the first time, have to think that whatever happens to me or others will happen to me, because we are all in the same boat, and whatever happens to you will eventually, sooner or later, happen to me. Therefore, the solution to the problem cannot come from an individualistic perspective, but it has to come from an integrated perspective. This is why the concept of integration and diversity is so important. Basically, because it is the new paradigm of economic and business thinking. But still, the world has to learn to get out of this old traditional thinking way, which is somehow hard, has a culture of hard to die, and it takes time for it to rethink the way it should react to the circumstances. Is making it aware that the world is not that the world is changed, but the way of facing the solutions is become different. Now, we have to think differently and therefore react differently. The sooner we get to that stage, the sooner we'll be able to solve the crisis. Now, we have the problem of fear, which has led to the fact that because we do not know, we have not experienced such a crisis before, and we do not know how long this crisis will last, then the action is, well, you know, what should I do? And then the government brings in a lot of money to try to somehow cover up the and think that because of the financial help, the problems are solved. But not, the problems are not solved. The problems are still there. What happens is that they have given it a coat of paint on top so that you do not see what's behind, what's underneath. And so unless you tackle the problem from the root and then work towards the transformation of society to understand and begin to think and face the problem differently, you will not solve the problem, because then sooner or later the problem will emerge again, perhaps even more strongly than it has appeared now. So I think the challenge leads to that. And I honestly think that we all seem to have centered on this idea that we are in a situation where we have to work towards integration and diversity.
Means we have to work together during this time. This is the main thing. Yeah. Government, business organization, all the stakeholders should work together during this time. And what the government is doing in case of Pakistan or in case of India, since we are trying to create the demand. Otherwise, the demand is, if the demand is not created, if the supply is more, then there will be problem in the economy. So, and the government is also trying at their best level. So, and we, the stakeholder, we means everyone have to work together. And as Ratan Datta rightly said, that this time is not for profit. If we can survive during this time, then we will be able to achieve our goal. So, like that, we have to work together.
Yeah, it is the concept that firms have to think that they do not they solve their problems through a process of cooperation with other firms, exactly, with the state and with society. You are not alone in the solution of your problem. If you try to solve the problem yourself, you will find that you create another problem. So this is what I was saying before, is this change of mentality where you have to go from an individualistic approach to a more collectivist and communal approach, in where the basis of analysis of the problems and the solutions of the problems are different from the ones we've been having before. So it's like we have to reinvent the way we do things. Because if we don't, we are going to commit the same mistakes again and again.
And the results will be catastrophic. So we should come together and, the problem. There is no escape.
So I would ask the two participants that we have to unmute their microphone, please. I've been trying to unmute you to allow you to ask questions. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please ask the question.
Good evening, sir. For the first time, I have attended such a wonderful seminar in international platform. And I'm the research scholar of IBM Chanu. So we have collected lots of knowledge for the first time in an international platform. And we have also know regarding the present situations prevailing in Pakistan also. And we are also enlightened by the deliberations of R.K. Mishra sir. Thank you, Mr. Sir. Thank you, Kurtalo sir. Thank you, Kokar sir. And this was a very wonderful experience for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to make a comment or ask a question to any of the panelists?
Otherwise, they can drop the message directly to you so that we can give answer directly to them through mail.
Yeah, or just write your question on the chat box, and then I'll pass it on to the panelists.
Yes. And then we can get back to them.
Then we have online Dr. Kaushir. Let's see whether he likes to ask us a question.
Kaushik.
Kaushik, please.
Yes, sir.
Please, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Kaushik, sir.
Hello,
Any
sir.
question, any observation?
Actually, I don't have any question. Just I minded that one. I am very, very grateful to you, all of you, that I am getting the good knowledge about regarding all the world and various countries. And during this pandemic situation, what we have to actually do, we come to know that one.
And I think, you can get invitation from Professor Nasir to visit Lahore and from Professor Khokar to visit Rawalpindi. And we can we can have them in Hyderabad.
Now we can go together. The professor discuss how we can go together.
No, if anybody tells me whether you know anybody in Lahore, I will never say no. I will say I know Professor Nasir. If anybody says, do you know anybody in Rawalpindi? I said yes. Who is that great guy? That is Professor Khokar.
Thank you.
And you can as well say you have a friend in India
In Hyderabad.
You are most welcome. I know
Thank
about
you,
the
sir.
University of Lahore. Lahore, is a great university, and their management department is good. And the vice chancellor, I think, is a management person, if I'm right. So Lahore University has been a very good university.
Yes, I think maybe you don't know Lahore. Lahore is called the city of colleges and universities.
Yes, it is a great
To
city.
visit to Lahore.
It's an
I
Oxford.
told you,
It's an Oxford of Pakistan.
if you don't visit means you are not born. About Lahore, they say if anyone who has not visited Lahore, he is not born.
We have to be reborn.
Yes,
Why
especially
reborn? I hope we can see in this very birth. I have to be in Lahore.
Spicy food of Lahore. Everybody comes to have that spicy food of Lahore.
Are you invite us? Then we will visit Lahore.
Yes,
Okay.
you can come anytime and you can have lot of food in Lahore. Very huge food streets in Lahore. Lahore is full of them. You can eat all day and all night.
Yeah. And then sleep the rest of the time.
Dr. Mario has visited Lahore already.
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Mario?
Yeah, I have.
Appreciate the effort.
I was invited by you.
Dr. Mario has taken a great initiative for the sake of public interest, and it's a totally free service. Even the participants have not charged anything, and it's a great community service that Dr. Mario has thought of launching these webinars from the platform of MBC. And I think it has added value to a lot of lives of the people, and they've come to know different aspects of all these learned colleagues who, through their rich teaching and research experience, have been able to contribute really value-added points in this crisis. I really agree that we are all in the same boat, and Dr. Mario has done a great job, a great public service rather, that he has been able to offer his company to assemble us and share our experiences with him and with the audience all over the world.
They brought us all together.
Well, let's see whether this some sort of initiative of this sort can be brought, can be done in the future. but in a
Yes.
more specific way in the context of target seminars, where we can all be more specific and more focused in terms of offering specific strategies and solutions. So with this thought, I am already being asked by Zoom that, being told by Zoom that our time has come to an end.
Okay.
So I would like
Thank you
to,
very much, Dr.
end
Mario,
this,
for arranging all this,
thank you.
and all the participants.
Thank you
We
so
learned a
much
lot from all
to
of you.
you to have made this this possible, and I'll be in contact with you to forward you the recordings of this session and your certificates. So
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
we'll stay in touch, and then I will make you aware of the next initiative that MBC will undertake. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you. Really enjoyed meeting you all.
This was wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Master Saab.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.